My problem wasn't the cancer, it was the aloneness. And if I long for anything in my life, it's connection. I'm trained as a psychologist, and I've done 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. And in all of my training, telling your own story is like a big no-no. The whole purpose of this is hopefully to help other people feel less alone in these complicated moments in our lives, where we all let go of all of that fear and bullshit and just exist together as our most authentic, flawed, gorgeous, fucked up selves. When we can be ourselves, we have the best and most perfect chance at connection. I'm Sarah Schmidt, and this is Holy Schmidt, Season 1. I can't believe that this is going to be the last time I say this for a little while, but welcome back to Holy Schmidt. This has been such a remarkable year. I can't believe we are at the end of our first season. When I look back at this year and this experience and the connections that I've formed with you, the listener, with the viewer, it has been extraordinary. But what sticks with me more is the way I feel so connected with myself. I did not know that I could feel better than I did the week that I spent recording this podcast, but the process of launching it and putting it out into the universe, and every week viewing myself back and listening to the stories, continuing to record new episodes for you, has been one of the most transformational experiences of my life. I can't imagine that it could get any better than this. And yet there's this part of me that knows that the best is yet to come, that there's more. Today, this episode is all about finding purpose. And I thought when I recorded it that I was sharing with you the purpose that I had found, with a great big period at the end of that sentence. And the reality is I sit here today, a year later, wondering, what's my purpose? What more? What more awaits me? What does the universe have in store for me? But I feel more ready and more alive, more connected, more embodied, more excited for all of it. And I mean all of it. This has not been an easy year. We're going to talk a little more about that later, but I feel ready for the challenge. I feel so grounded. And as I think about this episode and you watching it, you listening to it, like, this is what I hope for every human in the world. That you can push yourself in places and spaces and circumstances that challenge you in those really real, I'm challenged to the core ways, so you can see what you're made of and what you're made for. So I invite you to listen to this, watch this episode, open your heart, and ask yourself, universe, what do you want from me? I hope you find some inspiration today. I hope you know that you've got a person who's walking the walk right with you and eager to hear more about your own experience as you continue to find yourself and the world unfolds for you. These big decade birthdays, are a big deal for everyone, turning 30, 40, 50, 60. Instead of angst about was I going to live, it was more about how am I going to live. So leading up to that birthday, I wanted to, feel my best and look my best and arrive at that day with everything just optimized. And it didn't work because I was really focused on the outside and I wasn't paying as much attention to the inside. So that birthday was just a lot of incongruence inside of me. was a bit of a call to action for me to think a little harder and sink a little deeper into what was going on inside of me, working harder and more thoughtfully around connecting my head and my heart and understanding what it really means to live in my body and act from that place. I spent so much energy trying to get away from myself, just to not feel the bigness of I think, who I am. And I tried to just avoid it, dumb it down, push it away. It was so threatening. All these big feelings I have, and I've had since I was very little, and I'm laughing because it was just kind of comical. There was a point where I was like, oh my God, that was it? That's what you were avoiding? I discovered this whole new capacity to be with myself and then others in ways that I hadn't done before. And it's so great. I just feel so peaceful. I still have all the crazy thoughts and worries and fears and all that, but it exists in a really peaceful way. It's really great. They say that, 50 is this great decade where you just don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks of you. And I feel that too. I don't feel like I'm trying to impress people and make people like me and contort myself into things to be agreeable. And I don't feel the desire to do any of that. It's so freeing. And it is interesting how being that way has allowed such a deeper level of connection with people that I was missing out on. I think it's a different path for everyone, right? So I don't think there's one way to this, but for me, it was about quieting some of the noise, simplifying life a little bit, creating some space, and finding a person I could really trust to kind of walk with me and show me a little bit about how to do this. For this year, that was really getting serious about internal family systems work, all the parts work, and really understanding it. I knew about it, I'd read about it, I learned about it in school, but I never practiced it. So this year I put it to practice. I found or got in touch with a part of me that can be really mean. And that was really hard to face. Because the last thing I wanted someone to think is that I'm mean. But particularly in my marriage, there was a part of me that just could be really mean, almost vicious. And I had to really look at that and still do. Once you discover that you have a part, it doesn't go away. You just know it's there now. And then you have to figure out what you're going to do about it. And you don't just get to figure it out once. You have to pay attention to it all the time. So that was probably the hardest one to look at. The other one probably was this very hypervigilant part of me that was just on alert all the time, trying to be aware and maintain this level of control over everything. I had to really spend some time really with that part, trying to understand how it was serving me in order to help find a new way for it to express itself. For people that don't know much about parts work, it can sound totally crazy because you sound like you have multiple personalities. At some level, it's kind of like that. There are these parts of me, and they were all born out of a need and a authentic circumstance. And now it's my job as a relatively high-functioning adult to help them see where they are needed now or not. I think there has always been a part of me that has desperately wanted closeness and feared it terribly. And so with the person who I was closest to, I was probably most afraid they would react in advance of it, sort of in anticipation of, real defensively. No, you're not gonna get me. I'm gonna get you first. I'm gonna beat you to the punch on that. And in doing so, I'm gonna protect myself, right? But I wasn't really, because it just leaves you more isolated and lonely, right? So that's been a big one to grapple with, and it will continue to be. The more I control things, the less unexpected things happen, and I like predictability and structure, and I'm learning to live without it, or with less of it. There were a lot of times where I was left kind of in charge of my siblings, and my mom would be doing something, or many times where she suffered from migraine headaches and some different health issues that just became too much for her to bear, and she would just need to be in her room, and I would be left in charge. That was scary because I was probably too little to be in charge and put in charge of too much. But I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to let her down. I knew the stakes were high. I felt like I had to do this well or it was going to make her feel worse. And so I would go into overdrive to manage and try to control and lock down everything, just eliminate any level of unpredictability. And it was super useful. It's very useful. I am your person in a crisis. Medical crisis, for sure. Any crisis. It's my jam. It's my time to shine. But what I've been trying to work on more is not needing crisis to shine, not creating chaos where it doesn't exist, not needing so much change and constant variability so I can demonstrate my worthiness, and just focusing more on being. I'm more still than I've ever been, and that doesn't say much. I'm not particularly good at stillness physically, but I have a much different level of stillness internally. It's kind of nice to finally see that my external activity isn't in the service of avoidance and distraction. That's a really great realization. I'm now choosing to be busy because I just kind of enjoy it. I like doing lots of things. I like staying active. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to avoid feeling or thinking. This last piece I've been avoiding for a really long time. I knew I was avoiding it, and I knew I was going to have to face it, and I knew it was just going to keep coming around to me. And so I feel a lot less churn in my body, and I feel a lot more stillness in my physical self. And my mind and my heart and my gut are really all in alignment quite a good deal of time. It's really kind of neat to experience that. I'm just really relieved and both proud of myself that I did it finally. And am doing it. I should say am doing it because this is ongoing. This is the work of just being human. I know a lot of people who are avoiding a lot of things in life. I think it's the human condition, we want to avoid pain, suffering. We have a lot of tools at our fingertips to do it, right? We can scroll our phones, we can drink, we can overeat, we can overexercise, we can, there's just like a million things that we can do. We can watch TV, we can numb out. I think we all have something we can work on. Being more attuned with or attentive to. And I feel like in the process of being more okay with my own parts that I just didn't really care to look at, it's made me a much more empathetic human. And I'm finding that it's a lot easier to connect with people. I know that I really, truly love myself. I always wanted to feel that way. I really did. And I always found these barriers or things that were telling me that that wasn't the right thing to strive for, that maybe that's selfish or self-serving. This sort of love of self over love of other really it's not okay in our culture. We're supposed to do so much for others and put ourselves last. I think there's a way to do both, actually, or from love of self to then love others. I actually don't really mind getting older because the alternative is not of interest to me. And so I'm okay. I'm going to age. And, we all are. And it is inevitable. And if you're not aging, you're dead. And I don't want to die yet. I feel like there's some stuff I'm supposed to do. So I'm willing to get older if it means I get to do that. I'm going to do my best to age in the best fashion I can. But, there's just some things you can't fight. So if I had to name, what do I hope my legacy is, or if I died in the next year, what would it be? Really, it's more about the humans I have raised and am raising than really anything else. So I hope they're kind. I hope they're generous. I hope they love learning. I hope they are curious about the world and are good to each other. And beyond that, I guess I would hope they see that their mom did what she could for others, that she used her gifts and talents to the best of her ability. I hope they would see those things about me. But I'm not really worried about that. I think I'm on the right track. I think I have amazing children, and I think they're doing really good things in the world, and I think they'll continue to do that, with or without me. I think facing death at 20 has made me more appreciative of the moments that I have and more likely to seize them and to embrace opportunities and do things that people might otherwise think, oh, we'll wait on that. I think my level of impatience might be directly related to that experience of thinking I might die. And I like to think it's that, because then that seems like it can make sense and I don't have to feel bad about it. But I know that my sense of urgency around what I do and its importance is directly related to my knowledge that I might not be around. So that carpe diem thing, that what are you going to do with your one wild and precious life thing, that's really real for me. And I think about that a lot. Several years ago, I really thought, gosh, wholeness seems like a great thing to strive for. I don't know that I can really define it, other than I do feel more whole now than I did then. And I feel like I'm not striving as much now as I was then. And now I'm in a place more of being able to appreciate that maybe I'm experiencing that. So it's, I think, the alignment, the connection, the stillness, the peace, the contentment. That to me is about the closest thing I can think of, like, to what wholeness is. If I could speak to the me that was turning 50 and so kind of undone by the lack of alignment I was experiencing, between my inner and outer selves, I just would say, what have you got to lose? I mean, what are you waiting for? I think sometimes we feel like in misery, if we were to really look at it and address it, it's just going to get worse. But I think so often the opportunity is just to accept what is. There's very little we can do about the really hard things that we're facing in life, but we fight against them and then we create more problems for ourselves in doing so, as opposed to just facing things, letting them happen, trusting in the universe. Take the worries with you. Take your anxiety with you. Take your fear with you. It's okay. Everybody has something like that they're carrying. Just take it along. For me, the concept of wholeness is about really feeling comfortable and alive in your skin. Not just accept, but appreciate the complexity of who you are. What I'd really like to just remind people is that you're not alone. There are other people around you, close to you, who are experiencing challenges not unlike your own, and they're one conversation away. By risking yourself and opening yourself up to someone, you just might make their day. Hell, you might just save their life. I hope that by working on this whole project that we've just made it a little bit safer for people to be who they are. I'm Sarah Schmidt, and this was Holy Schmidt, Season 1. See you next season. Well, you know the drill. If you've listened to one of these episodes before, tell us what you think. Please share with us. Join us on Instagram or YouTube or wherever you're listening and watching. Drop a comment. What's your Holy Schmidt moment? What's your reaction to today's episode? You can also go to our website, holyschmidt.com, WHOLEYSCHMIDT, and share with us your Holy Schmidt moments. And here's the cliffhanger. We're not done yet. Join us next week for just one more bonus episode where Grace and Jessica and I sit down and we talk about this season and the transformative nature of how this work has unfolded in our lives in really beautiful, surprising, challenging, fantastic ways. Yes, there's going to be a season 2, and we're just so grateful that you joined us. We'd like to hear more about what do you hope we'll cover in the coming weeks and months? But until then, see you next week.